Welcome into another edition of Full Court Press. I'm your host, Courtney Mims. As you can tell, yeah, Full Court Press. You guys get it, right, Courtney? Yeah, you guys get the picture. Thanks so much for joining us on the second episode. As I was teasing all week long, I have a very special guest joining me for this one. You've heard me talk a lot about my dad, who is a basketball coach, and so many of you have said, Courtney, we want to hear from the Coach Mims. We want to hear from Coach Mims. Okay, I've heard your pleas. I've got the man, the myth, the legend himself. Yeah, my dad, Coach Billy Mims. And right now, he is still a head coach. For everyone who is asking, has your dad retired? No, he still is an active head coach right now in the Division II level. He coaches the Florida Tech Panthers. Yeah, he's my dad. You guys have heard me talk about him, but here he is officially. Dad, I'm so excited that you're joining the show today.
Thank you, Courtney. You know, I've done a lot of shows in my 40-year career all around the world, but Full Court Press is absolutely the one I've wanted to do more than any show I've ever done. I have been waiting to do this with bated breath. Thank you for finally inviting me to be on your show.
Listen, the Hog fans wanted it. I can only deliver. I said, when I have my own basketball show, it would be really cool to have my dad on. And so we got to actually enjoy the game together last night. The Hogs with a massive win over 14th ranked Michigan in Madison Square Garden, 89-87, the final score of this one. And Dad, you and I were going back and forth. You know, we text during games, and when you have an opportunity to watch the Hogs, you do. And it's so cool when we get to talk about the games and break them down live together. Again, people who always ask me, I want to see those text threads. Yeah, they're pretty crazy. We go back and forth a lot. So for everybody who doesn't know, you might look at that final score and go 89-87, pretty close. Well, the game was just anything but that. It was just wild from the beginning to the end. You know, the Hogs come out to an early lead. They take an 8-5 lead on the Wolverines, but then the Wolverines just do whatever they want in that first half. And it seemed like we were getting the same Arkansas that we had in previous games this year, even against UTSA. Oh, gosh. Here's another slow start. The Hogs getting themselves into a hole. And the Wolverines had a 15-point lead over the Razorbacks at one point in that first half. But it was impressive because the Hogs didn't give up. They actually cut that lead down. And so Michigan only went into the locker room up by 4 on the Razorbacks. And then the second half, that's where the Hogs dominated. At one point, they took an 18-point lead. And then they blew that 18-point lead, and everyone gets going, oh, my gosh, here's the same team that we're seeing. Here it is. But they were impressive. They managed to hold on for the win. Dad, what was your overall take from this matchup?
Well, I mean, it was really, really great college basketball to watch last night. And I know Coach Cal has been looking for a signature win in his very young Arkansas Razorback career, first season there in Fayetteville, in charge of the Hogs, and he got that signature win. You can't get any bigger than winning in MSG, Madison Square Garden, the mecca of the sports world in New York City, prime time, 9 p.m. East Coast Standard Time last night. And what a game it was for him to get that signature win. Courtney, you talk about a game of runs. At halftime, the TV interviews talked to Dusty May. And Dusty May said, well, you know, basketball's a game of runs. We had our run. They'll have their run. It's time for us to make another run. And boy, was he ever right. I mean, can you believe Arkansas was down 15 points? Then all of a sudden, Arkansas closed out the first half tremendously. Tremendous close to the first half. Got themselves back in it a little bit. Then they came out to start the second half on fire. I wish we could bottle Coach Cal's halftime speech because it was truly that game of a run. I don't know. I've been coaching a long time, professionally around the world, collegiately and Division I and Division II, always pretty much in the NCAA. But I don't remember a game where I saw a 33-point swing to go from where Arkansas was 15 down to go 18 up in the second half. That's a 33-point turnaround. And at that moment in time, it was like Michigan was that deer in the headlights. but last night it was the Wolverine in the headlights. Okay. They were frozen for a bit, had no answer to Arkansas's defensive pressure. Cal got tremendous pressure from his guards. He got shot blocking from his interior, lots of turnovers that created transition buckets. And I thought the Razorbacks were great defensively in that stretch and great in transition in that stretch. So again, I enjoyed every minute of the game last night. You know, for me to sit down and say, hey, it's going to be the first full Arkansas game I watch. I watched pieces of other games, but this was the first full one I watched. Cal treated me to a great college basketball game.
Yeah, I said you were their lucky charm. I was like, Dad, you need to watch more Arkansas games because, man, I just, we had not seen that from this team yet. And I truly, if you're an Arkansas fan watching this, you know that to be true because I tweeted out multiple times, who is this team? I mean, where did this come from? This is what we've wanted to see all season. This is what Cal said this team could be. And you know what impressed me the most? You talk about the defensive pressure they were putting on them, and we have seen this defense go up and down, and especially it's had its lulls this season, and they've really tried to find that defensive identity. But you saw it there, creating pressure, 12 turnovers. Michigan had in that second half. I mean, if you're Dusty May over there, you're sitting there going, what is happening? What is going on? We haven't seen this on tape from Arkansas this season. I mean, it was crazy to watch. I mean, just you as a coach seeing Arkansas, especially in that second half, and holding on to win it. I mean, because that's what Coach Cal talks about. It's not about just, you blew an 18-point lead. No one's saying that you didn't do that. Cal even put some of the blame on himself. I could have coached better. There were some things I did, like the inbounds for, with Trevin Brazil there. He's like, that was me. I wrote that up. I shouldn't have done that. But he took some of the blame on himself, but holding on to win that game and not even letting it go to overtime, right? For you as a coach, you've got to be saying that's what you want to see, right?
Well, I tell you, there's a couple of things I want to bring out in everything you brought out, because it was fantastic. Couple of things I noticed, you and I talked before the game. You said, well, the defense they haven't been ranked very high defensively. Well, that's a strange stat. People always look at defense in so many ways, right? Arkansas has been a good defensive team as far as points per game. They're holding their opposition on the season to 66.5 points per game while scoring 80 points a game. So from points per game, Arkansas is doing a great job of controlling the tempo of play. But then last night, and you and I both said, they played great defense for long spurts of the game. When they turned that game around, that 33-point swing was all about great defense, right? They stepped up their defensive pressure on the basketball. And as you said, forced 12 second half Michigan turnovers. But then again, the funny thing was, if you go back and look at the stats last night, Michigan for the ball game shot 58% from the floor. Now, most people look at quality defense and say the best measure is defensive field goal percentage. What are you holding? Are you making it tough for your opponent to score baskets? And great defensive coaches like to see their team defensive field goal percentage in the low 40s. So your opponent's shooting 40 to say 43%. And really, really, really elite defensive teams will hold their opponents to like 38, 39% shooting. So we talk about Arkansas playing a great defensive effort last night, and Michigan still shot 57%, almost 58% for the ball game. So you certainly couldn't look at it in defensive field goal percentage. But I will say this, the reason, if you go back, people say, well, Coach, how do you justify that, right? I justify it three ways. Number one, the turnovers created, because when Michigan turned the ball over, Arkansas got quick, easy scores. That helped them get back in the game. The second thing I credit it to, Arkansas took more shots in the game. So again, Michigan can shoot a higher percentage because they took less shots. They both made 33, 34 field goals in the game, and Arkansas made one more 3 in the game. Michigan made one more 2 in the game, okay? Where the difference in the game was, and it was a close game in the end. But the difference was Arkansas shot 4 more free throws and made 3 more free throws. So it's a 2-point win, but they really won the game at the free throw line and on their defensive tenacity because they dug a deep hole. Here's the other thing people won't really grasp onto. When they were digging that hole in the first 12 to 15 minutes of the game, Michigan was shooting like 70%. If you remember, there was a stretch there where they had hit 10 straight field goals. Remember that? So they're shooting 70+%. For the first half, they ended up going to the locker room shooting 61%. So that blistering pace they were on early, Arkansas slowed them down at the end of that. The last 5 minutes of play, first 15 was all Michigan. The last 5 minutes of the first half belonged to the Hogs, okay? They set that up going into halftime. Then whatever Coach Cal did at the half to make them understand that he made a great statement at practice the night before to Jay Billis. He told Jay that for us to win this game, we have to play harder than Michigan. That's what he said. For us to win, we have to play harder. He didn't say we have to make less mistakes. He didn't say we have to play cleaner than Michigan. We got to play harder. So they still had room for some error. For the ball game, Arkansas shot 50%, whereas Michigan shot 58%. And if you look at the three-point shooting, Michigan was 44% from three, Arkansas 39 from three. Neither team shot free throws well, both in the low 60s, but Arkansas created more attempts by aggressively attacking the basket. I thought Arkansas' speed, length, and athleticism was the difference in the ball game. And saying that, it's funny to say that, and this is the last thing, and I'll let you go back to your next point. But the last thing about the defense that I know, not only did defense get them back into the game, and defense make that 33-point swing to take them from 15 down to 18 up, right? Which was amazing, right? Defense won the game in the end because Michigan settled back down. Dusty May got them settled back down. They started going back to their dynamic duo, their twin towers. And I'm telling you, 2 7-footers, Golden can dominate the paint, and Wolf is the next Nikola Jokic. I don't know why the announcers last night, they kept talking about Wolf, Danny Wolf, and I saw him play as a youngster a few years ago in Crete, in Heraklion, Crete, in the European Championship, Youth Championships. And I knew that he was playing at Yale. He was a young player at Yale. And I watched him, and I'll tell you honestly, there were 4 NBA scouts that had come to Greece, had come to Heraklion, Crete, and they were sitting on the row right in front of me. And all I kept hearing them talking about was Danny Wolf. And last night, watching him in that role of the 7-foot point guard, he reminded me so much of the Joker, Nikola Jokic, a big man who handles the ball like a guard, who passes it. And they did say, he's going to flirt with a lot of triple doubles this year. So those 2 bigs were incredibly difficult for Arkansas to deal with. But the game came down, in my opinion, to 2 defensive plays. There was a block shot late in the game in the middle of the lane. If you remember that block shot, who was that hog that blocked that shot?
It was Trevin Brazil, wasn't it?
Trevin Brazil.
Trevin Brazil, yeah.
6'10", all big Trevin Brazil, who normally comes off the bench for the Hogs, but with Big Z.
With the ankle still, he had to take on a bigger role. And I mean, he stepped up.
Trevin had a bigger role. He stepped up. And I look at something and I go, 6'10", and he's only shot 7 free throws? That's mind-boggling. Why is he not getting to the free throw line more? But then again, going 2 for 7 at the line, maybe Cal doesn't want him going to the line a lot.
Yeah, maybe he needs to get better at those free throws.
But that block shot last night was a game changer. Okay? That really set them up, and that was on Golden. Golden had a little turning hook shot and down low, and Brazil came out of nowhere to just get enough, clip it, block it, send the ball the other way. And then the play of the game, right? 3.7 seconds left. Now, Dusty May is a friend of mine. I've coached against Dusty.
I know.
I like Dusty. I respect Dusty. But why in the world you call timeout with 3.7 seconds left? I mean, you really are cutting a fine line. I'm going, well, I got to watch this play now to see if Dusty has a championship play. He called a play. They went out onto the court. And remember, if you remember watching it, even the announcers, the ESPN crew calling the game, couldn't believe that he and his coaching staff spent the majority of the time out standing up, discussing what they were going to do. The first horn sounded, and they jumped in the huddle to call the play. They were running out of time.
Yeah.
They stepped out onto the court, and look at this. Two things happened that I don't know if every fan noticed.
Okay.
Cal, being the experienced coach he is, Cal let them go out onto the court, watched them line up. Cal took a timeout, sent right back. Now, that gave Dusty another chance to go over the play, which I get it. But Cal had an idea of what they were going to do. Mm-hmm. He brought him back. Somebody else had an idea of what they were going to do. Somebody by the name of John L. Davis.
Oh, yeah.
I sat there watching this going, wait a minute. John L. Davis played for Dusty May. Mm-hmm. I bet you coaches that have game-winning plays have those plays for years and years, no matter what program they coach. I believe that in that second time out, that gave John L. Davis more time to remember, let me think about what Coach May is going to try to do on this last play. What happened after that? The worst possible thing for Michigan and Dusty May, the best possible thing for Coach Cal, Arkansas, John L. Davis, and Pig Trail Nation. When they went back onto the court, they tried to run a baseline backdoor cut. And who were they trying to run it on? A player defended by John L. Davis.
Yep.
Nelly read the play. Maybe, just maybe, Nelly remembered the play, got the hand on the ball to deflect the play. Game over. Signature win for the Hogs.
I think you bring up a great point there, because maybe not a lot of people know, but you have coached against Dusty May. You've even seen Nelly Davis play a few years back when, nobody really knew who he was. He was still a youngster. And you guys played them in that game. So you have a little bit of knowledge about Nelly Davis and these players on this team. You talk about physicality. And that was what Dusty May said, man, this Arkansas team really physical. And Cal kind of laughed in the press conference about it. He goes, he's blowing smoke with us. He's being real nice about that. But the players did say in the locker room that was what Cal preached, physicality. But you make sure that you play harder than them. Make sure that you beat them down, and that is what they did. So that, I think, had something to do in the halftime speech. You talk about the players. John L. Davis, but we got to mention some of the big names here, and Boogie Fland, big in Madison Square Garden. He's a boy from the Bronx, back in his home state. 100 fans there just for him, right? Family members, friends. And he kind of was taking it all in. Well, he put on a show for them, right? And I'm just going to go through his stat line really quick for people that don't know. But led the team with 20 points. He had 7 assists. He had 2 steals. He was 6 of 18 from the floor, 2 of 7 from the 3, and perfect from the charity stripe, 6 of 6 from the free throw line. Dad, you said in our text messages, Boogie Fland, man, putting on a show. You love to see it. I mean, do you love watching him? I mean, is he truly the talent that everybody talks about, that everybody's been seeing this year? I mean, people are saying he could go down as one of the best point guards that Cal has ever coached. I mean, do you see that just in that game last night from what he did?
Well, I think Boogie Fland, the Bronx hero, came home last night, back to the Bronx, in Manhattan anyway, okay? I know he was in lower Manhattan last night. But what was interesting is he said at first when they were interviewing him pregame and he was sitting there on the bench, and somebody from the TV crew had talked to him and they said, what do you think about this? And he's like, man, he said, I've been here in this building before, but never down here. I've always been up there. He's been there obviously to see probably New York Knicks games, many Knicks games, and sat up in the cheap seats watching the Knicks play. He's been there to probably college basketball games from time to time, maybe to watch St. John's play or big events like last night, like the Jimmy V Classic. But he was making the point that for a young freshman right out of the Bronx, this was big. He was now going to be in the spotlight of the Mecca, Madison Square Garden. And I tell you what, he might have started off the game a little nervous the first few minutes, but when that sort of wore off, Boogie Fland put his name in the national spotlight. Okay. Everybody loves it. I mean, people on even the halftime crew were talking about going, Boogie Fland, what a name. That's a great name. So all of a sudden now people all over social media going, you see Boogie last night? Boogie was boogieing last night. All right. So I'm telling you, he has made a national presence for himself. He is an impactful freshman guard. The only bad thing about it is he does look a lot like Cal's familiar with one and done talent, and if Boogie keeps playing like he played last night all season, the only question will be how long before he jumps to the NBA, because he is a talent. He reminded me an awful lot last night of another great, Northeastern big city guard that used to have some big games in Madison Square Garden too, guy by the name of Allen Iverson. And Boogie Fland kind of reminded me a little bit of AI last night, because when Arkansas got down 15, it all of a sudden something clicked in Boogie, and it looked like he was ready to take the Hogs on his back. And he ain't that big, actually. I mean, what is Boogie size? 6'2", 175? Yeah, he's a $175 getting out of the shower dripping wet. Okay. That's a kind 175. 6'2" might be a little kind as well. He ain't that big, but he is a talent, right? And I'm telling you, doesn't matter how small you are, when you got a heart and talent, Boogie Fland showed both in Madison Square Garden last night.
And he may be a freshman, Dad, but you've seen this before in your coaching career, where he kind of came in and we wanted a leader on this team. And I kept talking about this. Who's going to be the leader? Who's going to step up? Well, you had Jonas Adu, who's a Tennessee transfer, coming. You have Nelly Davis, the FAU transfer. And those are older guys with experience. But Jonas was hurt, Nelly was hurt, and things. I think Boogie's starting to realize I may be a freshman, guys, but I got to be a leader. I got to be a leader of this team. I got to put him on my back sometimes and say, you know what? We're going to win this ball game, and I'm going to take, I'm going to help. I'm going to be a huge reason for that. I love Boogie. He is just an awesome, awesome guy, awesome player. He's been so fun to watch. Dad, we don't have long left, and I do want to ask you about this, because a lot of Arkansas fans have brought this up this year. I brought this up this year. Goodness gracious, I feel like everybody in the media has. Coach Cal went into the season, he said, look, I want about 8 or 9 guys, and they're my guys, right? I don't want to fill out an entire roster. I don't want to go to 12 scholarship players, because I'm developing those last 3 or 4 guys for somebody else. They're just going to hit the transfer portal. They're just going to go, somewhere else and play for somebody else and help somebody else. So I'm going to have 8 or 9 guys. Well, now we're seeing maybe how that was a good idea in theory, but you had 2 guys who had the flu last night. You have another guy with a bad ankle. And I mean, look, yes, things happen. We know it to be college basketball. Things happen, injuries happen. You get sick sometimes. Michael Jordan once had a flu game. It happens. I'm curious your thoughts on that whole experiment. And Cal is now he even admitted it may not have worked like I thought it did. It may not have been the best idea that I had. But do you see where he was coming from? And kind of what do you think about that?
Well, absolutely, I see where he's coming from. The game has changed so much just in the last couple of years because of NIL and because of the transfer portal. So everybody feels like now, if you have 15 scholarship players, you can't keep 15 players happy. You're only going to play. I mean, I know what we're saying, like, oh gosh, it was tough last night. They got the win. They gutted it out and got the win. Last night, Cal really played 8 players in the ball game. His 5 starters, Trevin came off the bench and played. Carter Knox came off the bench and played. Big Z played almost 9 minutes last night. So he played 8 players in the game. Well, if you go look at Michigan, Michigan played 8 players in the game. Okay. Cal played a 9th player, Billy Richmond, for 1 minute. And Dusty played a 9th player, Scottie Pippen's son, for 3 minutes. Okay. So, really and truly, most teams today at the top levels of college basketball are only playing 8, maybe 9 guys in a game, but 8 guys in a tough, close game. Sometimes you might only see 7 guys play. So the problem you have is if you're playing a lot of tough games and you're only going to play 7 or 8 guys because there's such a small margin of error to win. There was a small margin of error last night for both teams, for Michigan or Arkansas. Turned out to be a 2-point basketball game. Dusty May is disappointed he lost, but he still can't be disappointed in how he competed. Okay. Cal's happy they won and happy they competed for 40 minutes. But if they'd have gone to 10, 12 guys playing in a game, it might not have been that competitive. So that's what happens. And you can't keep 15 players happy. So the more scholarship guys you have sitting on your bench, not playing, Cal is right. In today's game, he's developing them, but they're going to be unhappy. They're going to say, well, how long am I going to have to wait here? I may go somewhere I play right now. And that's what the transfer portal and also money, NIL money, has brought about. You're looking around the country saying, well, that guy was sitting on that bench and he was making this, but hey, he could come start for us and we'll pay him more. He'll play more, he'll make more, because now he's a starter, not a sub. And so all of a sudden, when you look at those things, I understand where Cal is coming from. And it's going to make nights difficult. But these are young kids. And here's the thing people always forget too, Courtney. These are college basketball players. The majority of them are between 18 and 25 years of age. They're young men in the prime of their life, okay? Those same guys in the NBA play 48 minutes. They play for 8 months. They play 82 games, not 35 games. And they're only playing 9 or 10 guys a game. And the Nikola Jokic's are playing 40-plus minutes a game. The Anthony Edwards are playing 40-plus minutes a game, okay? So those older guys can play 82 games and play over 40 minutes a night, but we're worried about college players playing 38 to 40 minutes a game, 35 times a year. These same guys a couple of years ago were playing AAU basketball, playing 3 games a day, 8 games in one weekend. Nobody cares. And you know what? Right now, they're going to play their heart out no matter what. Hats off to the guys who were injured and sick for Arkansas last night, because when they came in the game, there was no let up. They still went out there and gave everything they had to give. And I respect Coach Cal for talking about, well, maybe I play. He said he played Boogie too long. You know, maybe Boogie got tired at the end. Physically, yes. Mentally, Boogie was on cloud 9 all night long, okay? And I look at it and say, sometimes, and again, Cal might not agree with me on this, sometimes I'd rather have tired talent on the floor than fresh backups. When the game's on the line, I'll trust the game to tired talent because talent usually wins.
I completely agree. Dad, that was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show and chatting a little bit with us today about Arkansas basketball and coming on Full Court Press. We might have to have you on another time before the season ends. I know you're dealing with your season right now, but we may have to have you on again. I mean, the people, I try and be a woman of the people. And if they ask for Coach Mims again, I don't know if I can fight him off with a stick. I don't know if I can do that. I might have to have you on again one more time, Dad, if you can make that happen.
Well, again, I'll say thank you because of all the talk shows, podcasts, whatever I've been on, Full Court Press is now my number one, my favorite one. So obviously I don't have any bias in that, I'm certain.
You might be. Little
anytime.
bit. Little
but
bit.
I will say this, the Big Trail Nation out there, I know that my connection to the Hogs is my daughter, but I can tell you what, I'm glad she's in Arkansas because it gives me a chance to follow a very, very good basketball team. I'm watching the Hogs even when so all coaches do.
Yeah.
I'm not coaching my own team or watching my own team. I'm watching somebody else. And right now I'm enjoying watching the transition that Cal is doing with that program in his very first year. Like I said, I mean, he's got three Kentucky transfers starting.
Yeah.
So he's got 3 kids from Kentucky that came with him and are starting with him. He's got a kid I know very well, and I coached against, John L. Davis, Nelly. It's fun to watch Nelly. I saw Nelly and coached against Nelly when he was a freshman, and your little brother,
Yeah.
Coach Mims, played in that game. Nelly played 21 minutes in that game.
Yeah, like 19, 20 minutes in that game. Yeah.
Josh Mims had a great performance. They were both freshmen.
Yes.
And so I have a vested interest in watching Nelly and Arkansas basketball, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying watching you and your career there in Fayetteville with Big Trail Nation. I've enjoyed watching the football pregame shows. Now I'm enjoying watching the basketball shows. So count me a Hog fan in Florida.
Well, there you go. That's all you need. That we have to end it on that, right? That's the best way to end it. Thank you so much, Coach Mims. What? Oh, you have one more thing?
The next time you get me on, there has to be a next time.
Okay.
Because the next time I'm on, you got to let me call the Hogs.
All right. Next time I'm letting you call the Hogs next time. Thank you so much for joining us, Dad. Again, this is Full Court Press. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.